When I first started golf, Hogan was one of the first books that I read, or Hogan's book was one of the first books I read, The Modern Fundamentals of Golf, along with Jack Nicklaus's Golf My Way, probably my dad's influence because he had them on his bookshelf, but there's so much gold in there. Now, one of the things that Hogan talked about was his right elbow and right arm and how he used them, right hand as well. There's quite a lot of misconceptions, and I had them when I was younger too. So what I want to do is talk a couple of things, particularly about the right arm, what one of those misconceptions is, and how it actually should work. So when I set myself up, one of the things that I do, which probably is a legacy of reading Hogan, is that when I set myself up, my elbows are pointed to my hips. So my right elbow is pointed to my right hip, and my left elbow is pointed to my left hip. Now, that doesn't mean that my elbows are tucked in or held together, even though in his book he has a binding around the arms, but he does say just the elbows point to the hips, so no stress there. Now, as far as the movement of the arm goes, when the club swings back and through, the movement is very much like if I was going to, say, throw a ball sidearm or skip a stone. So one of the cues, if I'm going to throw, say, sidearm, is that when I'm throwing, my balance will move forward, but if I'm focusing on what's happening with this arm, my elbow is leading my wrist, which is leading my fingers, which would be holding a ball. So I'd move my elbow, then my wrist, and then my fingers. So I'm going to move in that order. So my body movement is critical there, but here we're focusing on what the arm's doing. Now, the misconception that I had is that the arm had to stay close to the side, as in, I interpreted that as stuck against the side. Now, of course, if I tried to throw a ball or something like that with my arm stuck against my side, it would be completely ineffective. Comical and ineffective. So when I'm swinging the golf club, I need to take that into account. So when I'm swinging the club back, my arm's moving away from my side a little bit. So you can see from side on, my arm is definitely moving away rather than being stuck on my side as I go back. I can't move my arms freely if my arm is moving away from my side. When I'm swinging down, my arm will move back toward my side. Now, my arm is lowering and it is coming closer to my side, but I'm definitely not pulling it in or tucking it in. If I did that, then just like throwing a stone, it would restrict my movement. So that as I'm moving down, my arm is moving closer to my side. And again, just like the stone throw, my elbow is moving in front of my hip, my elbow is staying in front of my wrist, which is staying in front of the club head. So let's try and put all this together in a shot. That worked pretty effectively. Now, the other thing too is that by having the arm work more correctly, my wrist is also likely to work correctly. So if you practice those movements, feeling like you're throwing, and even perhaps mimicking the throwing feel, and then do it with a golf club as well, I'm sure that that movement is going to, one, become more familiar to you. Better yet, it's going to help you to strike the ground in the right spot and hit the ball more effectively. If you do throw a stone, or you can recall throwing stones or skipping stones on water, how many times, what's your record? How many times have you got it to skip?